Matthew 25, verse 14 through 15. I'll be reading Matthew 25, verse 14 through 15. And then I'll skip to Matthew 25, verse 21. Do I have any first-time guests here? Just raise your hand. We're not going to have you. What's up, man? Welcome, bruh. Welcome, bruh. We don't put you on the spot, but just so good to see you all and welcome to Fresh Start Church. All right. Matthew 25, 14 and 15 says, He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them. And while he was gone, he gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. He then left on his trip. Matthew 25 and 21. The master was full of praise, and he said, Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount. So now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. Family, I want to preach and teach from this particular topic in mind in part 1 of this sermon series, Don't Fumble the Bag. I want to preach from this topic in mind. Who do you think you are? You can be seated in the presence of our God. Who do you think you are? Turn to your neighbor and say, Neighbor, who do you think you are? Yes, listen, I want to just pull up on you all and talk to you about a very important topic in my heart, and I believe for many. We start a series entitled, Don't Fumble the Bag. Fumble, family, the description of fumble is described as situations where someone has lost a significant amount of money or an opportunity to make a lot of money due to their own mistakes or poor decision making. Is there anybody? Have you ever felt like you spent some money, lost some money? I've done it, because of poor decision making and maybe just reacting out of emotions. Webster Dictionary defines fumble as to grope for or handle something clumsily, or to use aimlessly. In other words, family, when we talk about fumble the bag, that everything that we have in our hand and everything that God entrusts us with, it is not to just be used any type of way. It's because there's an aim for the use of it. If you ever seen somebody that does archery, that takes the bow and arrow, they don't randomly pull the bow and arrow to the side. They usually have to focus on a shot because they want to make sure they get as close as possible to the bullseye. And one of the things I've learned, family, is that when you do not have a strategy, when you do not have a goal, you will end up aiming at things that don't align with your value or purpose. All right. One of the things when I was taking a class for my CCW, which is a carry concealed weapon, they make you go through this class, and during the class, they have one portion where inside you have to do something on paper, and then they take you outside to the range. And one of the things they do at the range is they want to make sure that you can properly use the weapon that you may be carrying. He says, listen, I need you to understand this because so often people want to get a CCW just to carry, but the truth be told, if they don't know how to carry the weapon right, they may mess around and kill an innocent bystander. And I want to tell you, when you do not have good aim at your money, when you do not have a strategy for your money, you set yourself up to fumble the bag that God has placed in your possession. Let me give you some background about me because I'm not talking to you about money because I come from money. I come from a single parent household. My mother has worked 2 jobs all her life. She still works 2 jobs all her life. I did not grow up with people teaching me about money. I did not grow up with a house full of money. But this is what someone asked me a couple of days ago. They said, how did you become who you are? They say, I see how you operate in leadership. I see sometimes how you operate in stewarding your money. I said this, I saw enough people lose before me that I take their experience and use it for my classroom so I don't have to make the same mistake that they made. And what I want to help you in these next couple of weeks is to know is that experience is not the best teacher. Other people's experience is the best teacher. I want to let you know in the next couple weeks that you don't have to continue to lose money, mismanage money. You don't have to continue to fumble the bag to learn what to do with the bag. I want you to know that God has placed a bag in your possession, but it don't matter how much it is if you don't have the right aim and know how to hold on to it. All right? And so I want to make sure before I even deal with anything financially or even numbers, I want to give you some stats. Stats say 1 in 5 teens lacks a basic foundation to build on for financial literacy. 74% of teens don't feel confident about their financial education. 32% of teens can't identify the difference between a credit card and a debit card. 21% of Americans have no emergency savings. And so as somebody that's a certified financial coach, I use as a gauge, as an emergency savings is at least $1,000 in the bank. That's a starting point. So the average person has no emergency savings. They go on trips, but they have no emergency savings. They buy shoes, but they have no emergency savings. They pop in bottles, but they have no emergency savings. They look like they're going to every concert in the world, but they have no emergency savings. They continue paying high car notes, but they have no emergency savings. 4 out of 5 parents' family wish they learned more about money as a kid. And I want to tell you, just because you have always been ignorant in an area doesn't mean you have to stay ignorant in that area. I know for some of us, we'll say, I didn't grow up with people teaching me all about money management skills. That's great. We got that. But how long are you willing to stay ignorant in an area that's hurting you? How long are you willing to stay ignorant in an area that's killing you? How long are you willing to continue making excuses about an area you can grow in, but if you stay ignorant in it, you can continue to make, oh, Lord have mercy, you can continue to make unwise decisions because you can say, I don't know. And this is one of the things that I've often tried to do when I prepare messages. There's 3 types of people under the sound of my voice. You have those that in every audience, the uninformed. They don't know about this. They don't know about this information. So this is the first time they're hearing this. And then you have those that say, listen, I'm informed, but I just need to be reminded so I can put this stuff in practice. And then you got another group of people that's informed and they not going to do nothing. They made up in their mind. They going to continue to ball out as long as they can until they can't ball out no more and cry and cry and cry and wonder why they in the same situation, but they don't want to change their behaviors. And I want to help you understand this. This ain't going to be a series that you're going to probably be saying amen. But if you're guilty of it, just know you ain't by yourself. We all been there. Turn to your neighbor and say, I've been there. Now, for some of y'all want to say, girl, I'm there right now. Man, I'm there right now. I can't even tell you. I'm acting like it's past tense because I'm speaking this thing prophetically. So we got to understand before we talk about numbers and dealing with the bag, I have to always deal with the mindset. So first, let's start with the definition of stewardship. Stewardship is the management property of another. In simple form, stewardship is the management of property of another. And when I was thinking about an example of how to exemplify this to you all, it's sort of like for those that are teens or kids, or all of us as adults that's been teens, you know what it means to stay in somebody's house. Yeah, it always tripped me out, Sharana, that as long as I wasn't getting in trouble, this cracked me up. My mama always would be like, that's our house. That's our food. That's our car. But I always knew when I got out of line, because she would say, who do you think you are doing that in? Y'all ever see how the situation changed? As long things are good, it's ours, but soon when you start going contrary to what lines up in the house, it starts being possessive, because the truth of it was they were trying to remind us that no matter how comfortable you get inside the house, no matter how much food you eat, no matter how much they love you, don't get it twisted. This is still my house. And I want to tell you that just like our parents, God wants me to remind you, no matter how much you grow, no matter how much money comes in your bank account, no matter how old you get, he's still your daddy. And what you've been blessed with, the bag that you've been blessed with, you have not been called to use it how you want. You have been called to use it how the Father wants you to. Now, watch this. In order for me to help you with the numbers, way before we get to that, I got to deal with the mindset right now, y'all. And the first thing that you're going to have to understand, if you're going to make sure that you don't fumble the bag, you are going to have to learn to know that you are not the owner. You are not the owner. I don't care how comfortable you get. You are not the owner. And so let's look at this Bible passage, y'all, that's really heavy on stewardship, that Jesus teaches his disciples about on how to handle money. Now, oftentimes this passage is also used on how to handle your time, how to handle talent. But when it comes to this particular passage, y'all, he's talking about money. Somebody say money, money, money. All right. Matthew 25:14. Jesus starts telling a parable, and he says, again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. I want you to notice this. The servants is us, right? And the man that's going on the trip is God. So you got to understand this. When God is the man, we are the servants. This is what happens for some of us. When you are not clear on your role, when you are not clear on your script, you will mess around and get in the wrong role and don't realize that the role that God calls you to play, that's why it's not working out, because you were not made to play that role. See, family, in a movie, a script is created and roles are delved out so people are clear on their lines. If the supportive cast thinks they are the main character, family, we have a problem. See, the movie, the series only works as well as people that's willing to play their role. And when you think that you are the owner instead of the steward, now we got a script problem. Because now you're operating in a role and lines that don't line up with the role that God has given you. And I like this because notice what the man does. In Matthew 25:15, the Bible says the man gives out some things. The Bible says he gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. Then he left them on a trip. Do y'all see what's going on? He gave one man 5 bags. He gave another 2 bags. He gave another 1 bag. And he gave it based upon their ability. Because this is what I want to help you understand. Your desire will never override your ability. Giving you something beyond what you can handle is not actually a blessing, it's cruelty. So if the man was to give the 5 bags to the man that only have the ability of 1, the man with the ability of 1 may have been like, this is a blessing, but he's going to be crying. He's going to be, oh, Lord have mercy. He's going to be talking about it's too heavy because he went off his desire and not off his ability. Do you know how many people ask God things out of their desire, but not out of what they can manage? Do you know how many people ask God randomly for stuff because they have a desire, but they never assess, do I got the discipline? Do you know how many people pray and ask things of God out of desire, but never ask, how well am I doing with my current time management? Because the next thing that's added to my plate, I'm going to have to manage my time even better. See, I want you to stop just asking God things out of desire. Start asking God, says, Lord, you know my heart, but I also know you know my ability. So this is what happens. When you are drawn by your desire instead of your ability, you'll get mad that God gave you 1 because he gave somebody else 5. You upset because you think that you got the ability to handle more. And you can always determine how much more you can handle based upon what you're handling right now. If you asking God for more and you can't manage the little time you having now, it don't get better with responsibility. It actually shows up on the front end to see that, listen, you don't have the time you think you should. See, this is why some of us can be disappointed because you cried to God in your prayer out of desire, but he answered according to your ability. See, you are not the owner. So, Pastor, who am I? You are the steward. See, if you don't get this in your mind, it don't matter how much money you get. It don't matter how much you get paid. It don't matter how much increase you get. If you don't get in your mind that this is not yours, you're going to always spin the bag and fumble the bag because you are mixed up in the role you are called to play. Okay, so Pastor, what's the definition of a steward? I'm glad you asked. Someone who manages the resources of another to accomplish the goals of the owner. Someone who manages the resources of another. So a steward is not someone that just manages the resources of another. It also is one who manages the resources of another to accomplish the goals of the owner. Which means in order for me to properly accomplish what God has called me to do with the bag, I got to make sure I'm clear on the owner instructions. Do you see this? But this is what happens. Look at this. Matthew 25, 16 through 17. The Bible says that the servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earn 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. Matthew 25 and 18. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid the master's money. Because watch this, when you refuse to play the role of steward, you will operate as an owner of something that's not yours. Deuteronomy 8 and 18 says, and you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to what? Hold on. He doesn't give you wealth. he gives you the power to what? To get wealth. Which means that God will give you the right skills. He will give you the right seed. He will give you the right opportunities. But if you lazy and you don't work on what God gave you, now you upset and praying for God to give you something that he says, listen, I'll set you up, but I ain't going to do the work for you. And some of us don't realize this because when you're standing and you're asking God, Lord, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for the job, I'm waiting for this, I'm waiting for that. He said, I've given you the power, but what are you doing with what you have? Because this is what I want to tell you. When you realize it's not yours, being a steward comes with accountability. Yeah, oftentimes people do not really like the word accountability because it means that you are accountable to someone on how you spent what they gave you. Look at this, Matthew 25:19. After a long time, the master returned from his trip and called them to give an account of how they had used who money? Notice this. He gave them what he desired based upon their ability, and he left. But just because he left don't mean it stopped being his. God sent Jesus Christ down here to spend 33 years. He's gone. He sent the power of the Holy Spirit, but my Bible says there's a second coming, and he's coming back. In other words, just because you don't see him physically present, don't get twisted to believe that you're the owner, because eventually, at the end of this life, he's going to come back and want an account of what I gave you and how did you steward it, and did you steward it according to his goal, and did you do it according to your desires? And sometimes what we don't realize, we think because somebody's not present that they forget what they gave us. This is powerful, family, because we can't be steward of God's resources if we want to own God's resources. It's hard for somebody to be the proper steward of what you bless them with when they want what you got. Yeah. You don't want the wrong person house sitting in your house. Because if you stay away too long and the wrong person is house sitting, they start getting too comfortable and start asking questions. How you get what you get? Why they got what they got? Why can't I have this, Lord? I know what they've been going through. I know the struggle they went through. I know they passed. Why can't I be blessed like this? Because they get confused. Just because you're gone for a while don't mean you're not coming back. And just like it is with people, it's the same thing with God. You better know that Jesus is coming back, and when he comes back, he wants an account for what you've been doing with his bag. So what the enemy will do is make you believe just because you don't know the time or day that it's never going to happen. See, I want to talk to the real people that knows what it feels like to pray for something for so long, and in your mind, you say, it ain't gonna happen. Come out, y'all gonna act brand new. You done prayed over and over, but mentally you like, it ain't gonna happen. Until you find out down the road, when you forget that you prayed for it and then it happened, now you under panic and anxiety, you crying, talking about, oh my God, I didn't know that it was going to come. I'm confused. Are you walking in faith? Are you walking in fear? So then when God answers your prayer, not according to your time, now it becomes a burden. Can I help you understand this? Because you are not the owner and God is a steward, God expects a return on his deposits. And what we see here, family, in these next few verses is we see God, we see Jesus do what we call a financial audit. Because I want to help you understand this. And some of y'all maybe never thought about it like this. You are God's bank. That's it in. He gave bags to each one of them according to their ability. What did he do? He made a deposit in them. And we find out that the 5 and 2 end up doing something with it, and the 1 ends up doing something with it. And now, after giving them the bags according to their ability, now it's time for accountability. Do not ask for more blessings and more responsibility if you don't want more accountability. The bigger the budget, the more accountability. The more money coming into the organization, the more parameters you need and checks and balances, because people want to know, where's my money going? See, and anybody that makes a deposit into the right bank, you want to check the interest rate. For some people that have walked close with me, I've given them the cheat code. When I found the code, where I said, why are you sitting all your money in a B of A and Chase where you get a 0.00001% interest? I said, why don't you switch it to Capital One where you get 4.79% over the year on your money that you're saving? So now the money that you're saving is also saving for you. So now at the end of the year, my savings is making so much interest that if I want to do something, I'm not spending my savings, I'm spending the interest. See, this is a mindset. Some of y'all ain't gonna get it because you looking at just your money sitting there versus saying, how can I grow this thing? How can I build this thing? This is what God's given me. He's given me a seed. Now that he's given me a seed, now it's some fruit to produce. So look at the accountability that Jesus does. In Matthew 25 and 20, family. Y'all still with me? Look what he says. Look what the servant says. The servant to whom he had entrusted the 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 5 more. Matthew 25:21. Look what the owner responds. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. How many like that person? I like it. I feel like that's a pretty good deposit. Now, one of the things that you'll realize, family, how many people have ever heard the phrase, well done, my good and faithful servant? Let me help you understand this. This is the only time it's mentioned in the Bible when it relates to how you handle money. Oftentimes when people use this, we think about doing a lot of external work. But when it's used, well done, my good and faithful servant, it has to do with how each person was stewarding the bag. See, and this is what I realized. Sometimes we want to make scriptures according to what's easy for us. See, you can bother a lot of people's stuff, but don't bother their money. Come on. I love God, I'm saved, and everything, but don't bother my money. I need to be extra fasting and anointing. If you bother my money, you steal my money, I know God go get you, but I may have to get you too. Anybody ever feel like, come on now. Now that's report number 1. Let's look at report number 2. The servant who had received 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more. Notice it's multiplication. Matthew 25:23 says, look what the master said. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling the small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. I want you to see this. Every time the servant did well with what they had, they got more responsibility. There's a price to pay when you're good at what you do. There's a price to pay when you're good at what you do. And look what the master said. Let's celebrate. Hold on. You want me to celebrate more responsibility? Yeah, because you got to understand that you do not get more blessings and get less responsibility. The more blessings you have, the more responsibility you better get ready to accept. Now, when you look at the passages, the first man had more bags than the second man, but both of them still got the same response. So it wasn't based upon who had more, it was based upon who did what they were supposed to do with what they had. Now, let's look at the third report. Matthew 25, 24 through 25. Then the servant with the one bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops you didn't plant and gathering crops you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look here, your money is back. Look what the servant responds. You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I harvested crops I didn't plant and gathered crops I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least I could have gotten some interest on it. Now, I want you all to see what's going on. While the servant, it could have been he or she, while the servant had one bag, it was not an excuse for him to be stingy. Because what he or she did, what the servant ended up doing when they got the bag, instead of multiplying it, they went to hide it. And as a result of hiding it, they come to the master and says, Master, you gave me one bag, I dug it, and guess what? I know you're the harvest of everything. I know everything belongs to you, but I didn't do what I was supposed to. Because you got to understand this. God may hear your excuses, but it doesn't mean he accepts them. And this is what I've learned when you look at this. The man could have grew the 1 to 2, which as a result of that would have showed that his ability and skills was growing. So if you grow your skills and your ability, then you show God that you can give me more. See, the 1 could have worked up to 5, but because he still had a mindset to believe that it was his and that he thought he was doing something else and that, you know what, there wouldn't be any more money that come from it, he operated out of fear instead of operating out of good stewardship. Everybody else multiplied except for him. And this is what you see oftentimes, you all. Your behavior do not change because you get more money. Your behavior shows up with the little you got. If you don't give God nothing now, you're not going to give him nothing when you get a lot. So watch this. He knows when he said, Lord, I know, Lord, would you get me this and bless me with this? I ain't going to never do it again. He said, you're lying. Lord, if you get me out of this one time, I'm not going to do it again. You're lying. Hear me. You get that credit card talking about it's going to build my credit, and here you are using it, swiping it like no tomorrow, You're doing the moonwalk all through, and forget that the bill going to come at the end of the month. Now you struggling because you're like, man, I got this money. It looks good, but I don't know if I want to pay on this. This is a mindset. And some of us don't realize it's not about how much your neighbor had, it's about the ability that you have and to make sure you do what you need to do in order to multiply what God has given you. But if you believe that it's yours and not his, you go handle it like the man with the one bag. And look what Jesus says. Then he ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one with the 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are giving, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, here it is, even what little they have will be taken away. This is a mind shift. Because even in the church, 80% of the people think that the 20% can carry everything. You assume that your situation is different from anybody else. You think because somebody else got more ability, then that lets you off the hook. And no. It's saying do what you can with what you've been given. This is why you got to be careful, family, with making your lifestyle according to somebody else's. There were people that I would be trying to live similar to until I found out on the back end that they were drenched in debt because of the shoes they was wearing. I'm going to go a step further. I remember one time when someone saw some shoes I was wearing, they said, man, I can't wait to be able to have enough money to get what you have. And I just said, to God be the glory. But what they didn't know, there was a gift from somebody. Somebody else had the money to buy what I wanted. So they heard what I wanted and blessed me with it. And because somebody else didn't know the backstory, now they run out to go get a credit card to get the same shoes and don't realize they in debt. But guess what, baby? I didn't spend one dime. See, you got to be careful. Not knowing what people go through to get what they desire. On the flip side of that, there's nothing wrong with having desiring to have a quality of life. Yeah, I want to make it clear, this is not the church that we preach the poor gospel, that you holy if you poor. No, baby. Jesus' assignment was to die at 33, not mine. So if you're not careful, you'll start comparing yourself to different people and don't realize God wants you to do with what he's giving you based upon the ability that he's giving you. And that's why he gives you a bag. That's why he gives you the money and bless you to watch this, give you the power to get wealth. God blesses us supernaturally when we are good and faithful stewards. Here it is. I want to close out. You can come on up, Wes. What are the characteristics of a good and faithful steward? Here it is. Before I even go into those, man, every teen, every young person, hear me, if you can get this early, it will save you. It will save you heartache. It will save you pain. It will save you stress. It will save you anxiety. Because somebody paid the price for you where you don't have to pay it. I can't wait till I start talking about budgeting. But some of us go in debt for our kids, for them to be happy for one day and don't know the tears that you shed. Because now you got to figure out how to pay it back. And now you done took some out on interest for 18%. By the time you pay it back, you done paid it back times 2. Instead of sitting with your kid and says, listen, Mama or daddy, we want to do this. But also, we believe in putting God first. So first, we want to make sure we put God first, but also, baby, we got goals. And if I spend all of this to make you happy for one day, you may see a different kind of stress for the rest of the year. But what you don't realize, you're not putting the stress on them. Now you're teaching them early on. Oh, mama and daddy used to always say, put God first. I don't understand that, but why? If you want to break generational pattern and curses, you got to stop staying ignorant in situations and subjects that you have the opportunity to grow in. Man, me and some of the men were talking and other subjects, and we were like, how long can we continue saying we didn't have that in our life? Until we finally say, nope, we didn't have it, but how can we get better? Some of us want more from God, and he said, you robbing me with the little I've given you. So what are the characteristics of a good and faithful steward? Number one, a good and faithful steward knows that God owns everything. I remember when my wife and I, we had just got married and everything, and this is why you have to always be careful of seeing things, and we had these goals, and every time it would come around big holidays, Christmas, Valentine's, other days, there were times where we were like, don't get me nothing. We want to put that extra, whatever you were about to give me, let's put that extra on the bill. Because we want to be happy more than one day. So for the next year, babe, I don't care. Don't let nobody pump up your head. What'd he get you? That's all. We got goals. So this is what we do. You ask Lady B. Christmas, every now and again, depending on what goals we have, we still ask, hey, this year are we getting each other something? And that don't mean that she may not get me anything or I may not, but it still is like, hey, let's see where we're at. It costs what? Man, listen, we can put that extra on here. Psalms 50:12 says, if I was hungry, I would not tell you, for the world is mine and all that is in it. God essentially is telling his people, if I was hungry, I wouldn't ask you for a cow. All the cows belong to me. Why would I tell you when it's all mine? What am I trying to get you to understand? Man, this is not, the bag is not mine. Number two, a good and faithful steward doesn't settle for maintaining, but growing. Remember what he said, Matthew 25:24-25. Then the servant with the one bag of silver